Seniors were promised an increase in the big, beautiful bill, but it looks like that is not going to happen because 40% of seniors are actually being left out. So, what I'm going to do is explain to you what is happening in the Senate right now and why a significant number of seniors have been let out of this big, beautiful bill that promised that all seniors were going to get an increase. And then I'm going to explain what is being done to pay for this and why millions are losing Medicaid and food stamps and other benefits that is critical to low income households. Now, again, this is the facts. My job is to bring you the facts as they happen so that you can then call your senators and let them know that this bill is going to negatively impact you financially. It used to be that when these things are being done, there's some transparency around it. But this is a 1,000-page bill that is being rushed through the Senate, and a lot of us haven't had a good opportunity to really review the impact. And now the details are beginning to come out. And every hour, we're getting new details about this 1,000-page bill that is going to negatively impact seniors for at least 10 years. And so my job is to unpack it all, bring you data to show you why you should probably be on the phone calling your senator right now, because this is negatively going to impact about 40% of seniors. My name is Kwame Kwade. I am a government benefits expert. For 15 years, we've been helping seniors get the retirement benefits they deserve. We create content on Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, and any personal finance issue that affects seniors. And I am also an adjunct professor. I teach finance to graduate students at one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. Now, if you are new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Do me a favor, go into the comment section and let me know your city and your state, because we like to know where you guys are watching our broadcast from. But we have a lot to cover today. So I want you to stay with me because there's a lot going on that could have a huge impact on personal finances of low income seniors and households that is going to take at least a decade to sort through. So, as always, I like to bring you the facts so that you can make a decision for yourself about how you want to react to this, because I think that as the Senate is debating this bill, there is still an opportunity for you to make your voices heard so that they hopefully will change course and do the right thing by reversing some of these draconian cuts that they are making to benefits. So let's start with the top, because I think it's important for you to see where the benefit cuts are coming from and how they are going to impact you. So I'm going to share a series of data with you so that you can see what's happening. So the first thing I'm going to share is this is what is a summary of who is losing benefits. So this was done by the Center for Policy Priorities and Budget, and they are saying that if you look at the totality of the bill takes away healthcare coverage and raises healthcare costs for 17 million people. And that is a number that continues to grow. It was 16 million, but then when the Senate took up the bill and they did the analysis, they realized that actually there's 1 million additional people are going to lose benefits. So what they're saying is that 17 million people are losing benefits, and it breaks down like this. So you have 17 million getting benefit overall. 20 million people are going to have their healthcare costs increased in the Affordable Care Exchange. So if you have bought healthcare through the Affordable Care Exchange, your healthcare cost is going to go up. And then you have cuts to Medicaid, and the ACA is going to cost 1.1 trillion. I'm going to show you another graph that shows you exactly where that 1.1 trillion is going, because this will open your eyes about how they are taking money from low income households and giving it to the high income households. It's fascinating for you to actually see how this is a direct correlation between what they're doing right now. But let's talk about other assistance that are being taken away. Food stamps. a lot of states are going to be forced to end their food stamps program because of how this bill has been designed. And I'm going to explain that in a second. The New York Times did an analysis that shows that states are actually now going to have to take part of the cost. But the way the system is designed is that the USDA released the data today that shows that if a state goes above a certain error rate, they will owe the government millions of dollars. And if they cannot pay it, they will have to give up the program. That is going to cost $186 billion. And then there's 4.5 trillion in tax cuts that are skewed towards the wealthy and corporations and millionaires. People who make $1 million or above are going to get $90,000 in tax cuts, and households that make less than $25,000 are going to get $70 in cuts. So that's all you're going to get, $70 if you make less than $25,000. And then on top of that, this is going to plunge the country into more debt, 3.8 trillion to be exact. So as if this is all not enough, let's look at how this is going to impact you on an individual basis. So you look at, they're telling you that, okay, we're not taking healthcare away from anybody. But here's the truth. States are going to feel the pain of healthcare costs. And if they cannot come up with the money, then they are going to lose benefits. So here is another analysis on how this is going to impact you. And this is just today. This came out like 4:50 p.m. Eastern time. It is 5:45 Eastern. And this is from the Center for Policy and Budget Priorities. Based on new SNAP data released today, 44 states will have to pay tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars under the Senate Republican cost shift plan. If a state cannot fully pay, they would have to cut many low-income families off SNAP or end their program altogether. Now, you may be thinking, well, what does this really mean? Well, I'm going to explain that to you. Under the bill, a state would have to pay a percentage of their food stamps benefits on its SNAP error rate. So that is a rate that is calculated for the SNAP program, a measure of overpayment and underpayment. So if a state issued SNAP benefits and they, overpaid some people and underpaid some people, that is considered as error rates. And most of the time, it is largely because the state did something unintentionally. They made a mistake. But now the government is going to punish them for that mistake. So this is unprecedented because food benefits have always been 100% federally funded. But now what the Senate bill is going to do is that if a state makes a mistake in their error rate above a certain percentage, now they are going to owe money to the federal government. And if they cannot pay that money back, their food stamps program, they will have to shut it down. So let me share with you what is happening here with more details. So North Carolina, for example, would have to pay 15% of food benefits based on their 2024 error rate, which means that based on the error rate that North Carolina had in 2024, they will have to pay $438 million. Alabama will have to pay $172 million. And Ohio will have to pay $316 million. And if the states cannot come up with this, they will have to cut benefits or shut down the program altogether. So when you hear your senator telling you that we are not taking food stamps away, we are just making it more efficient, we're cutting fraud, we're cutting waste. Well, this is what they mean by cutting waste. They are trying to trip states into making mistakes, then they get punished. And who bears the consequence is going to be low-income households who are going to be left off the hook. So 30 states have reduced their error rate in 2024, but they have virtually no time to make further progress to avoid this huge unfunded mandate. The first year of the cost cutting is based on 2025 error rate. So they're going to look at this year's error rate and then punish states accordingly if they don't have the correct error rates that the government wants to see. This has never happened before. Food stamps has been 100% federally funded program, and now here we are. So let's look at Iowa, for example. Iowa is a great example of how nonsensical this is, because Iowa's error rate is well below the national average, as it has been for several years. But because it increased less than a percentage point, they will be on the hook for millions of dollars. And the USDA just released this data today. The USDA released SNAP payment error rates for 2024. Iowa rose slightly to 6.14%, less than a percent increase. And Iowa could now be on the hook for $27 million thanks to the cost sharing provision in the big, beautiful bill. What point am I trying to make here? I'm trying to tell you that they may be telling you that they are not trying to take food stamps away from anybody. But what they're doing is that they are putting a lot of red tape in front of you and in front of the states to make it difficult to get benefits. And the New York Times did an article today that talked about how much paperwork is going to be required. And paperwork is how they are going to try and kick a lot of people off all the benefits that has been highlighted. So let's look at that article from the New York Times. They are saying that the GOP is using a paperwork strategy. We are cutting $1.7 trillion and you are not going to feel any of it. That's what they're saying, but they're doing it to frustrate you with paperwork. So 14.4 million people are going to be steeped in paperwork in 4 different programs. And as a result, here's what's going to happen. If you look at this graph, people that are going to lose benefit because things are going to be stuck in paperwork. There's going to be frustration about how many times you have to prove that you deserve to get food stamps or you are eligible for food stamps, how many times you have to prove that you are eligible for Medicaid. That is what's going to happen. So under the ACA, 4 million people are going to be knocked off the program because they are going to be frustrated with paperwork. Under Medicaid is going to be 7 million people, 7.4 million to be exact. Under food stamps is going to be 3 million. And then under school meals is going to be about 250,000. So this is the strategy. It's going to be a paperwork, death by paperwork, because they're just going to frustrate you. Every time you turn around, they're going to ask you to prove that you are eligible for a particular benefit. And a lot of people are going to be frustrated and then are going to give up. And then that's how they kick millions of people off these programs. And it is by strategy. And the New York Times did this article today, which you can read for yourself, about how paperwork is one of the ways that they are trying to knock you off that. So now let's get back to seniors. So seniors were promised they were going to get a relief. They were going to get an increase in the big, beautiful bill. Remember when President Trump campaigned, he said he was going to do no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on tips, and no taxes on overtime. That was what he was going to do. Well, in the big, beautiful bill, there is a component that honors the no taxes on tips part. So if you work and you get tips, you can deduct up to $25,000 a year in cash tips. It has to be cash tips, $25,000. And then in overtime, you can deduct $10,500 in overtime and not get taxed. So those two promises have been honored. The third promise, which is no tax on Social Security, unfortunately is not in the bill. It was not in the House version and it's not in the Senate version. Now you may be thinking, why? Well, they changed their mind and now they are offering seniors a $4,000 tax deduction in place of the no tax on Social Security. That is what is in the House bill. And then the Senate has increased that tax deduction to $6,000. Well, that may all sound good, But here are two things you need to keep in mind. The first one is that you have to make less than $75,000 to qualify for the tax deduction. Now, you may think, well, I can do that. But here's the thing, you have to make the entire 75,000 in order to get the entire 6,000. But the biggest problem with offering a tax deduction instead of just a straight Social Security increase is that 40% of seniors are not going to be able to claim the tax deduction. Why? Because they don't make enough money in combined income to file federal taxes to begin with. So if you don't file federal taxes on your Social Security benefits, then you are completely left out of this big, beautiful bill. There is nothing for you in the bill. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but that is why I wanted to bring this to you right now so that you guys will call your senators. They are still voting on the bill as we speak, and to encourage them to change course, because 40% of seniors are going to see nothing, zero. In fact, they are taking more away from you in addition to not offering you an increase. And I'm going to talk about what is being taken away. So what I wanted to tell you is that a promise was made, no tax on Social Security, and that seniors were going to get an increase. Well, that has not happened. And right now, if this bill passes, this is the biggest opportunity President Trump has to pass a meaningful bill to help seniors, because this is being done using the reconciliation process, which only requires a simple majority in the Senate. And so things get harder from here. And so if they don't include meaningful reform to help seniors right now, and I'm going to talk about what they can do to help seniors, if they really want to help you put money in your pocket, I'm going to talk about that. And then I'm going to talk about breaking news from the Social Security Trust Fund, which you want to stay for till the end, because that is also going to put a lot of stress on seniors. But let's stay with this topic about what is happening with the big, beautiful bill. And let me share with you what is happening with Medicaid and states that are going to be impacted. But before I do that, let's talk about Medicaid and why you should care. Medicaid is the largest insurance program in the United States. You may not know that. It's even bigger than Medicare. 74 million people depend on Medicaid. And 1 in 2 children that are born in the United States are paid for by Medicaid. 62% of seniors who are in nursing homes and assisted living facilities are paid for by Medicaid. 30% of seniors on Medicare are also on Medicaid and depend on Medicaid to pay for their Medicare premiums, etc. And 7 million veterans are on Medicaid that do not qualify for veterans health care. And then 2 million people who are in cancer treatment get their post-cancer treatment paid for by Medicaid. So you get the picture I'm trying to paint. They may tell you that there are a lot of people on Medicaid that do not deserve it. But are you telling me that 62% of seniors in nursing homes do not deserve it? Are you saying that half of the children that are born in the United States should not? But you get the point. It's like, don't fall for the rhetoric. Look at the data. And so I'm going to share the data with you of what's going to happen to Medicaid and who is going to be impacted and how states are going to be devastated if this goes through. So let's start with the total number. 16 million is the number of people that are going to lose healthcare coverage under this bill. And the average state is going to lose 313,000 Medicaid beneficiaries. So I did the math, and I have data for the high impact states, which states are going to be hit the most, so that it will bring the picture or paint the picture for you. Florida, 2.4 million people are going to lose Medicaid. California, actually Florida has the highest of all, 2.4 million. California, 1.9 million, close to 2 million. Texas, 1.9 million. New York, 966,000. Georgia, 788. North Carolina, 604,000. Illinois, 460. Ohio, 436. But there is more. So the next group of states, Pennsylvania, 390,000. You can see Arizona, 323. Virginia, 258. Louisiana, 243,000. And so forth. New Jersey, 309,000 people are going to lose their Medicaid coverage. And then here is the bottom list of states that are highly impacted. Indiana, 231,000. Missouri, 219. Maryland, 210. Wisconsin, 214. And Alabama, 204,000. And this is live, real data of the 16 million people that are going to lose Medicaid coverage. These are the states that are going to be hit hard. Now, you're probably thinking, I am a senior citizen. I'm on Medicare. Why should I care? Well, you should care because if you're a low-income senior and you reach a certain age where you cannot afford long-term care or assisted living, then you would have to turn to Medicaid. And so if they're gutting Medicaid by $1 trillion, then at some point, low-income seniors are going to feel the pain because that money is coming from the same pot. Also, a lot of seniors depend on Medicaid to pay for their Medicare premium and out-of-pocket costs. Because remember, Medicare does not pay for prescription drugs, does not pay for, vision, does not pay for dental, does not pay for hearing. And so you have to get an additional plan. A lot of seniors cannot afford an additional plan beyond their Medicare Part B premium. And that is where Medicaid comes in. And so if you're a senior and you're on low income, you probably know somebody that is on Medicaid. You probably know somebody in your family that's a veteran that is on Medicaid. You probably know somebody that is in your family that have children on Medicaid. And as I mentioned, it is the largest insurance program in the country. So the fact that they're getting this program to pay for the tax cut is what I want to highlight to you. Now, I came across a particular graph that kind of highlights, who gets the money and who is paying for it. So right now, if you look at the tax cut components of the big, beautiful bill, if you're in the bottom 20%, you are getting $70. If you're in the next 20%, you're getting $520. If you are in the middle 20%, you're getting $1,000. But if you're in the top 1%, you're getting $62,000. And if you are in the millionaire category, you're getting $88,000. So if you're in the bottom, you're only getting 70%. But then you get your healthcare taken away. You get your food stamps taken away. You get your heating and energy assistance taken away. Now, I received a post recently that I highlighted about somebody that commented on the video that I did yesterday, and they were sharing with me something that paints a picture of how much seniors are struggling. And I think I talk about this a lot, but it hasn't been really put this way for me to see. And so I am going to share with you what this person shared in the comments and highlights the fact that a lot of seniors are struggling, and taking healthcare away from them, taking food stamps away from them is going to cause a lot of pain over the next 10 years. So I'm going to pull this up and share what this person was talking about. So it was a senior that was sharing their budget. They're sharing their own budget about how, sorry, that's not it. They're sharing their own budget about what they are spending on a regular basis, and the fact that their Social Security benefit does not cover their expenses. And so the question is, for somebody like that, what can they do when their benefits are also being taken away? So that is what I wanna show you in a second, if I can just get it up. In the meantime, if you are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining me on this Monday afternoon, evening. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing, consider hitting the like button and the subscribe button. If you've been watching my content for a while and you're getting value out of it, please share it with somebody. If you know somebody that could benefit from this content, share it with them, because our job is to make sure that you have the information you need so that you can make your voices heard. Because I think that once this train leaves the station, there's going to be a lot of pain that seniors are going to experience for a while. And I think that the way to get ahead of this is to call your senator today and let them know that they should vote no on this bill. The only way we're going to make change is to make our voices heard. And you may think that your voice is not important, but it is. And let me share with you why. Recently, if you have been watching my content, I reported on the fact that if you have a social security overpayment, the government was going to take your entire social security check or your disability check and use it to pay for what you owe. Well, we made a video about that and asked you to call and push back. Some other channels also made videos, and the news media also made a lot of noise about it, and they backed off. And they did not back off completely. They went from 100% to 50%. So if you owe overpayment, they're going to take 50% of your check. But it's better than 100%. And so my point is that do not think that your voice does not matter. It matters, because they are voting on this and they're getting a lot of pressure. And the more of you that call, the better. So let's look at this person's budget that they shared, and then it will highlight what's been happening. So this is a comment that came in today. It says, here's a real breakdown of how seniors barely survive check to check. So this person saying, I'm getting $1,960 in Social Security benefits. Rent, which is a studio apartment, is $1,100. Car payment is $400. Insurance is $220. Groceries is $300. Utilities is $225. Medical copays is $75. And nothing here is out of ordinary. And the total is $2,315. I remember saying recently that an average senior, depending on where you live, needs about $2,900 if you don't have a mortgage. So this person is saying, no wonder there are so many homeless. And they made a point. If you're getting $1,960 and the average Social Security is $1,908, this is a typical expense. And it's not a lot. It's not like the person is living lavishly. Everything here is needed. Car payment, insurance, utilities, groceries, medical copays, and they're already short. It's $2,315. So what are your options if you find yourself in this situation? So when seniors are getting food stamps, getting Medicaid assistance, getting utility assistance, it makes sense, because where are you going to get the difference? If you are not working or you don't have the ability to work, where does the government expect you to make up the difference? And we talked about inflation. Inflation has gone up and stayed up. A lot of prices of goods and services that went up never came back down. And so that shows you, that highlights how seniors are struggling. And I want to thank what's his name, Journey Drama 1972, for sharing your story with us. And if you have a similar story, let me know in the comments. I want to see, how are you making it? How much are you getting? And are you short every month? By how much? Because the more of these stories that we get, the more we can make a case that things are not okay. All right. So moving on, let's talk about, the Senate and the bill and how it's being paid for. So this graph just came out today, and it shows how the one big beautiful bill impacts people, and they are comparing the House and the Senate version. And this came from the budget lab, the budget lab. That is the source of this graph. And this is Steve Ratner. He's a very well-known economic guru. And he put this together, and he's looking at, okay, how does the House version of the big beautiful bill compare to the Senate version? Well, if you look at the House version, the bottom 20% are worse off. They're actually getting -5. If you put everything together that they are losing, if you put all the things that is being taken away from the bottom 20%, they are losing 2.5% of their income. They are worse off. And then the Senate version of the bill makes it even worse, 2.9%. And then you go to the next 20%, and there's a little bit of relief there. And so when you're thinking, what does that equate to in terms of numbers? I can give you some numbers of, if you want to look at how much income you have to make to fall into each category, I can tell you. If you're in the bottom 20%, you make less than 25,000. If you're in the second percentage, you make between 25,000 to 55,000. If you're in the third 20%, you make between 55 and 93,000. So you have to make 55,000 and above in order to get a little bit of gain in both versions of the bill. So the bottom of the list, anybody making less than 55,000 is actually not getting much. They're actually getting things taken away from them, and their household situation is going to be worse. It is when you make about 55,000 that you see some relief, and then the next group are going to see more relief, and then the next group are going to see more. And so as you can see, this is why I showed you the earlier graph that shows you how much, who is getting what. And so this is what that translates to. You know, this is just the tax cut component of it. But this graph adds up everything, including what you're losing in food stamps, what you're losing in Medicaid, what you're losing. And you can see that it makes the lower income category completely worse off than the rich. So let's get back to seniors. Now, if you're a senior citizen, you're probably wondering, okay, well, the tax cut is not happening. The tax on Social Security that was promised is not happening. And so what can they do for seniors? If you call your senator right now, what can you tell them? What meaningful legislation can they include in this bill that they can put in right away to make a big impact? Well, there are 5 things they can do. And these 5 things I'm about to share with you are not things that they have to come up with. These are things that they have already been working on and will dangle in front of seniors every now and then to get everybody hyped up, but then they don't really do anything about it. So here are the 5 things that are actually bills that have been in front of the Senate and the House for a while that they can include in this legislation right now, not tomorrow, not next year. They can include it right now to make a difference in the lives of seniors. And I've been sharing this in my last couple of videos. The first one is to pass the Social Security Expansion Act. This can be included. It is a bill that already exists. That's why it has a name, Social Security Expansion Act. They can just take that and include it. It was started in the 119th Congress. It is called S.770. You can Google it for yourself. The Social Security Expansion Act will give seniors a $2,400 increase right away a year in your Social Security benefits. And it's completely paid for by extending the payroll cap, the Social Security tax cap from $176,100 to $250,000. What does that mean? It means that currently, if you make $176,100, you pay Social Security benefits taxes. You pay Social Security taxes. This legislation will move that number to 250,000. It means that if you make up to 250,000, you pay Social Security taxes. That's it. And this will affect only 9% of the population. So over 91% of households will not see any increase. But this will put an extra $2,400 in the pockets of seniors. That is something they can do right now. As I mentioned, they don't have to craft any new legislation. They don't have to meet and do anything. They can just take it and plug it in. The second thing they can do is what is called the Social Security 2100 Act. This is another legislation that exists already that has been dangled in front of seniors several times, but nothing comes of it. This would increase the minimum Social Security benefit. Remember that guy whose expenses that I shared with you? He's getting an average Social Security benefit. $1,960 is the average. But there are a lot of people who are getting even less. So think about how worse their situation is. The minimum Social Security benefit is around $900. So if you're getting $900 or $1,000, you are living below poverty. So this Social Security 2100 Act will put the minimum Social Security benefit at 125% of the federal poverty level. What does that mean? It means that it will lift seniors who are getting the minimum benefit from where they are, which is $900, to $1,660. That will make a meaningful change, a meaningful impact in the lives of people, seniors who have worked 30, 40, 50 years, have paid their taxes into Social Security, were in low-wage jobs, and now are getting the minimum Social Security benefits. And if somebody getting $1,960 is struggling, imagine somebody getting $900 or $1,000, what they are going through in order to make it. So that's the second thing they can do. The third thing is to adjust cost of living adjustment. There's a proposal out there that would increase the cost of living adjustment and put a minimum threshold at 3.5%. It means that your COLA, your cost of living adjustment, can never be below 3.5%. Why is that important? Because this year it was 2.5. In some years it's 0%. So this will make sure that seniors will not get anything below a 3.5% COLA. Well, over the last 10 years, seniors have lost 20% of their Social Security purchasing power due to inflation. This bill will help by putting COLA at 3.5% and above. And then in years where you have high inflation, it will obviously be adjusted upwards. And then the final thing they can do is about food stamps. A lot of seniors qualify for food stamps, but they don't apply because, one, of frustration with paperwork, and number two, the minimum benefit. You may not know this, but there are seniors that are getting $23, $24 in Social Security, in food stamps, which is the minimum benefit. And the reason for that is that the government is claiming that you make too much money. So if you're a senior making about $2,000 in Social Security, you probably do not qualify for food stamps. So they're saying that you have to be making something in the poverty rate before you can get help from food stamps. So anyway, the bill would increase the minimum food stamps benefit to $75, which is something the state of Ohio is doing in a similar bill. So the government can follow the state of Ohio and implement a similar bill. Plus, one of the reasons why a lot of seniors get knocked off food stamps is because they are being kicked off for having breached the asset limit. If you're not aware, if you have more than $4,500 as a senior in your bank account, you cannot get food stamps because there's asset limit. But the question is, why do seniors need $4,500 in savings? Well, because the average senior needs $6,600 in savings in order to afford Medicare out-of-pocket costs. And if you are in one of those covered drugs, you have to spend $2,000 out of your own pocket before Medicare would take over if you're part of the 12 drugs that are part of whatever, the cap. If you're not in those drug category, everybody has to pay out of pocket in terms of your co-pays and deductible, etc. And so a lot of seniors are saving because they need it for emergencies, and most of them is health-related emergencies. So to be kicked off food stamps for saving money to afford healthcare when healthcare costs are running so high, this year your Medicare Part B premium was 6.6%. So why am I sharing this with you? I'm saying that if they are going to make it easy for seniors to apply for food assistance, they can increase your asset limit to maybe $10,000. That will help a lot of seniors afford to apply and get the minimum benefit, which I think should be increased to $75. Now, all these ideas I've shared with you, as I mentioned before, are not new. They're not something I came up with. These are ideas that are in front of Congress. They know about these ideas. Some of them even have names to the bills that I mentioned: the Social Security 2100 Act, the Social Security Expansion Act. All these are bills that are in front of Congress. They just don't want to do anything about it. So if they are not going to give 40% of seniors an increase, this is where they can start. Because if this bill passes as it is right now, 40% of seniors, millions of seniors, are not going to get any help at all. And that is going to be tragic. Well, and you may be thinking, why are they taking from the poor, or why are they taking from low income people in order to pass the tax cuts? Well, it's because if you look at the federal budget, which I'm showing you right now, there are very few places that Congress has the will and the courage to take money out of. This is the entire federal budget. The biggest chunk is Social Security, which they're not going to touch for obvious reasons. The second bucket is Medicare. They're not going to touch that for obvious reasons. Another bucket is non-defense and discretionary defense spending. You know they're not going to touch that because defense lobbyists are going to be screaming and they're not going to do anything about that. And then the next bucket is your interest. Net interest payment is 13%. They're not going to default on the debt. So what is left? It is Medicaid, CHIP, ACA subsidies, that's 11%. And then other mandatory programs. What are those mandatory programs? Food stamps are in there. They are called income security programs. SSI, supplemental security income, is in that bucket. So they are looking at those two buckets, and that is where they are taking money out of in order to pass this gigantic bill that takes away from low-income families in order to finance the tax cut that I have talked about. So if you want to call, who should you be calling? Well, somebody has done an analysis and thinks that these are the senators that are actually on the fence. So if you want to call the Capitol switchboard, is 202-224-3121. And let me talk about North Carolina for a second, because Senator Tillis yesterday came under a lot of pressure and he finally caved and decided that he was not going to run for re-election. And immediately after saying that he was not going to run for re-election, he gave a speech on the Senate floor. If you haven't seen it, I think you should Google it, go on YouTube, and you will see for yourself what he has to say about what North Carolina is going to lose in terms of Medicaid and why he voted no. He's one of the two senators that voted no against the big beautiful bill, the procedure vote that came out yesterday. He voted no. And the speech was eye-opening because it made me realize that, look, these guys know what they're doing. They know that they are taking away from low income in order to finance tax cuts that benefit primarily the wealthy. But for whatever reason, they're going ahead and doing it. And then now that he's not facing any pressure from from having to face re-election, and then now he has the courage to say what we know should be said. And so my point is that they know what they're doing. So if you look at this particular chart, this probably the last chart I'm going to show you today, and it compares the 1.3 trillion dollars that they are taking away and where the 1.3 trillion is going. So cuts to SNAP, Medicaid, and ACA marketplace is 1.3 trillion together. And then tax cuts for people with income over 500,000 is 1.3 trillion. This is by the Center for Budget and Policy Analysis. This is a good visual, if you want a good visual of what's happening. And if you look at it and you look at the chart that I already showed you with the federal budget, and you see where the money comes from and where the money is spent, it all makes sense. Because if you look at the federal budget, I showed you the bucket, right? Medicaid, CHIP, ACA subsidies are 11%. And then other mandatory spending is 16%. If they are not going to take from Social Security, if they're not going to take from Medicare, if they're not going to take from non-discretionary defense spending or discretionary defense spending, and they are not going to default on the debt, national debt, which they still want to increase by $5 trillion, then there are only two places for them to take the money to finance the tax cuts. And this graph then makes sense because that is exactly where they're taking the money from. So I hope that this has been very helpful to you. My job is to bring you the facts. As I said, this is not about politics. This is about giving you the information you need in order to make informed decisions and also get your voices heard, because this is happening. It's going to have a devastating impact. And if my job is to bring you anything in and out of Congress that's going to affect your benefits, then I have done my job. Finally, before I leave, I want to talk about Medicare. Now, we've been talking about our partner, Chapter Medicare, for a while now. And I think that the biggest thing I want to emphasize and the reason why we are partnering with them is what they do for seniors. I think that when it comes to Medicare, a lot of seniors struggle because there are 24,000 Medicare plans out there that you're supposed to sort through. Some of them are local specific. And so you have to understand what is available in your area, how much it costs, what the copays are, what the doctor networks are, what the hospitals are in the plan, what drugs are covered, what the copays, all these things you have to figure out on your own. And that's why having a Medicare advisory company like Chapter comes into play. I am going to put their link in the comments. There's a form you can fill out, and in the description, you can fill out a quick form and they'll reach out to you. Or you can call the number on the screen, 539-205-2147. And when you call them, here's what they'll do for you. They will explain to you all the benefits that are available to you, Medicare benefits, what the copays are, what is covered, what hospital networks are in there, what doctors, etc., and then help you compare it to traditional Medicare. And here's the thing, you may have a very small window to make a change. So if you're part of the 90% of seniors that do not have the right Medicare plan, you may have a small window to make a change. Or if you're turning 65, you have a 7-month window. If you're overwhelmed, Chapter can help you sort through this. So give them a call today. They are highly rated, A+ with the Better Business Bureau, tons of 5-star reviews online, and everyone we've sent to them has had a great experience, and I know you will too. So give them a call today. The service is free. And as I mentioned, you have a small window to do this, and they can save you $1,100 a year on average by moving you into a better plan than you're currently in. So that is what I wanted to cover with you today. Tomorrow, I'll be back live to bring you more about what's happening with the big, beautiful bill and give you a latest update. If you like what you heard, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share your comments, share your thoughts, and I'll see you tomorrow.